much older than that.
You can't be a beacon if your light don't shine. You can't be a beacon if your light don't shine. There's a light all of us by God's design. You can't be a beacon if your light don't shine. Can you ask for truth when you do not truthfully? Can you ask forgiveness when you don't forgive? And I don't mean to bring you down or speak to you unkind. You can't be a beacon if your light don't shine. Join in. You can't be a beacon if your light don't shine. You can't be a beacon if your light don't shine. There's a little light in all of us by God's design. You can't be a beacon if your light don't shine. All right, Kurt. Stand if you're able. Sing this one together. May God's love surround you. May you find a brighter day. May He grant the peace you're seeking every way. God's light burns in each life, yours and mine. You can't be a beacon if your light don't shine. All right, all together. You can't be a beacon if your light don't shine. You can't be a beacon if your light don't shine. There's a little light in all of us by God's design. You can't be a beacon if your light don't shine. You can't be a beacon if your light don't shine.
I'm so glad to be here, and I'm amazed at the community here and just the love that I just feel radiating in this place from the Spirit within us. And I would like to speak today about the United Church, and we acknowledge that the building and ministries from coast to coast are on traditional territories of Indigenous peoples. We acknowledge that our sacred space is found on those Indigenous territories of Assiniboine and Adirondack peoples. We also mention the Haudenosaunee and Wendat people. And with thankfulness and respect, we seek to live in right relations with all, and we stand with them, because we are all one. Canada is a land touching 3 oceans, 31,752 lakes, 243,000 kilometers of coastline. Some of it is defended just by a little orange pylon in between our country and the one south of us. We are a land of peace. An amazing land peopled with diverse and rich cultures, races, and faiths. A country of peace and alive with beauty and resources. And truly, it's a blessed land, and we are a blessed people. This land is known around the world for its generous people. Our hands are open and kind. And so let us sing, "This is the day that the Lord has made." beautiful smiles and handshakes.
And
let us give thanks to the Holy One. It is right to give our thanks and praise. And so, as we light the Christ candle of the Spirit's presence, it reminds us that the light of Jesus shines in and through all God's children, bringing us peace, granting us hope, offering us grace for our land, our hearts, and our lives as we gather together in faith. Our Bible verse of the month is, above all, love each other deeply, because love covers a multitude of sins. And now I ask that you remain standing as we sing 3 verses of O Canada.
Thank
time to connect to your spirit of love in and around us. Our lives are busy, and here is a house of rest, a place to be still, a place to refresh. Jesus called this place a place of prayer. And you, great Spirit of life, move among us today and always. Your light shines through your creation, bringing life and hope. And we lift our hearts and voices to you with gladness. So now hear our voice, hear our song, hear our sorrows, hear our joys. And together we lift our voices to you and pray as Jesus taught us. Our Mother and our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. You may be seated.
So how's everybody doing today? What a beautiful day. What a great weekend this has been. Summer is here. It's too hot. Who said that? Who said that? I'm bringing a snow shovel next Sunday. I'm going to prop it right up there. And my big boots and my winter coat. Any celebrations? Birthdays? Anniversaries? Oh, come on. Somebody's got a birthday. Oh, here we go.
This Saturday coming.
Oh, this Saturday coming. A happy birthday. We won't see you till Sunday. We'll celebrate again. Any other joys? Well, that's exciting, eh? He has his own fireworks and everything. That worked out really well. Well, happy birthday to your husband.
Denver Milner, and he graduated on Tuesday night, and he got 2 awards, one for music and one for drama.
Most of you will remember Denver because he used to sing in the choir, right, Kathy? And he was so cute. When I first came to Trinity, I met Denver, and he had that, I just wanted to, and I did, because that's, his cheeks they just invited you. We went to see him in a production at the Palace Theater. And it was spectacular. And so it's always nice to bring him out some Sunday. We miss him. Tell him we miss him. Any other joys and sorrows? Any prayer requests today?
My niece passed away a week ago.
Keep her in your prayers and your family.
I celebrate my 84th birthday on Friday.
Happy birthday, Bobby. 84. Oh, wow. Well, we'll have cake. Well, not this Monday, but next Monday. How's that? That sounds great. Well, happy birthday.
I have a prayer request that I'd like to make that goes out to my family. My good friend is dying of cancer.
Keep them in your prayers.
I just wanted to thank everybody for all your thoughts and prayers for my sister over the last year. And if you could still keep her family, especially her husband and her daughter, in your prayers, it's going to be really hard for them. So thanks.
Been in our hearts on this whole journey, so you have your family here, and we love you. We're here to support you. Any other prayer requests or announcements? I'd have a prayer request for a very dear friend of ours that I spoke of last week, and so things are progressing, so I ask you to continue to keep him in your prayer. His name is Larry. Larry and his family in your prayers as they navigate through this very challenging chapter in their lives. And I know they believe in prayer. They're Christian people. They love the Lord with all their heart, and
And I know they've prayed for lots of people here over the years as well. So.
Thanks, Kathy. I'm sure many of you here will remember Linda McKay. She worked well, first of all, she was a neighbor of Dix and mine for years, and she worked here in the office for several years. Linda has been diagnosed with a very rare brain disorder called PSP, or progressive supranuclear palsy. It's an uncommon brain disorder that affects movement, control of walking and balance, speech, swallowing, vision, mood and behavior, and thinking. The disease results from damage to nerve cells in the brain. The disorder's long name indicates that the disease worsens, progressive, and causes weakness, palsy, by damaging certain parts of the brain above nerve cell clusters called nuclei or supranuclear. These nuclei particularly control eye movements. One of the classic signs of the disease is an inability to aim and move the eyes properly, which individuals may experience as blurring of vision. I was talking to Linda's son earlier this week, and apparently she can no longer blink her eyes. The estimates vary, but only about 3 to 6 in every 100,000 people worldwide have been diagnosed with PSP. If you want to learn more about this disease, and you've got an internet, if you've got a computer and internet, just Google PSP and it'll come up. I can't tell you how sick Dick and I feel about this. And if you knew Linda at all, you will also feel very sick about this whole thing. It just shouldn't have happened to a beautiful person like Linda. She's a very proud person. She doesn't want to see visitors because apparently she doesn't look like herself, according to her son. So please keep Linda and her son and daughter and their families in our prayers and thoughts. I have contacted Paul because I thought he should know, even though I didn't really want to, on his vacation. But she's been asking for him, and I understand that he is probably the only person that she will allow up there to see him. I hope she lives that long so he can see her. I don't mean to bring everyone down, but this is a real concern for a beautiful person. Thank you.
The sorrows in our lives are also God is there. And we can hold your hands up, Kathy, in prayer and in love to this dear one of yours. It's time for our offering. So I would ask the ushers to come forward. Across this song a couple years ago. It is called I Love You, Canada. And it is one of the most beautiful songs about Canada I've ever heard. It's from a local musician from Delaware named Larry Mercy. Thank you. Graciously going to play with me. I see your beauty every morning when the sun comes shining through. I've seen countless sights like northern lights. You're an old friend, tried and true. And in years from now, I'll remember how I was proud to take a stand. I love you, Canada, my home and native land. I see our future in our children, so proud and strong and free. One family, hand in hand, from sea to shining sea. I know this father's son is not the only one doing everything she can. I love you, Canada, my home and native land. And even when times are bad and it's been hard to make it through, this country together will stand on guard, and I always will love you. Now it's time to say in my own way, so all will understand. I love you, Canada, my home and native land. I love you, Canada. May God bless this great land. We stand first. Ask you to stand. The ushers are going to come forward.
What can I do? What can I bring? What can I say? What can I say? I'll sing with joy. I'll say a prayer. I'll bring my love. I'll do my share. What can I do? What can I bring? What can I say? What can I say? I'll sing with joy. I'll say a prayer. I'll bring my love. I'll do my share.
And all God's people said, Amen. We have some children here. It is children time, is it not? You come up to me and I will come down to you. Hello. I'm glad to see you today. Put down my funny stick, which I need every once in a while. Today we're going to do something very cool. Because I love to do fun things and I love to laugh. But I need a helper. I have bubbles. Oh no, I'll never get the thing out. Oh dear, I wasn't to put it back in. Maybe your finger can get that out. It's not very tight. Today we're going to talk about God's joy. And I'm going to talk about dandelions. When we get it out, maybe we need a helper. We do make a big mess when we play with it, but it's fun. It's clean fun. And sometimes our lives seem to be sad, and we need to remember that God's love and light lives from inside us. And He shares it everywhere, all over this world, like a dandelion joy, a bright light So I'll let you go and blow a few bubbles for your friends, big and small. Give it a try. Yep, wherever you want to. And maybe we have somebody who will chase them. Go ahead. Go ahead, we all know what they do. Yay! There goes one. Who can break it? Quick! Yeah! Again, you go ahead as I'm talking. God is like the light in our lives. And sometimes we may not feel very bright and cheery, but it isn't true. God's love and life is always growing and evolving and making beautiful things out of everything, everywhere the Spirit touches. So look what happens when we see that the Spirit is in our life. Move over just a little bit so your friend can see. God's light comes into our life and shines. And then we can share it, and it shines to others. It touches one and one and one like a smile that is contagious. You may use the bubbles if you are going downstairs, or you can leave them up here. And we just ask that God would be with these children as they go down with their teachers and learn more about his love. The love that Jesus said, "Come, children, come and play with me." Because that is what God's kingdom is like. It is full of joy and full of kindness and full of bubbles. Let's sing "This Little Light of Mine" as our children go down to their time. I might just leave them glowing there. They kind of look nice, don't they? Technology has made me, I don't have to use a little button. I've never seen one like that. Of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Shine all over London town. I'm gonna let it shine. Shine all over London town. I'm gonna let it shine. Shine all over London town. I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Thank you. You may be seated. Kathy is going to come and read the scripture for us.
Thank you, Heather. I loved how you lit those candles. I used the little thingy on the bottom, but that is far more impressive. I'm sure I must have a remote with my candles. I've got those all over the house. I love the light, so thank you for sharing that today. Today's reading comes from John chapter 8, verses 1 to 11, and Psalms 119, 105. Jesus went across to Mount Olives, but he was soon back in the temple again. Swarms of people came to him. He sat down and taught them. The religious scholars and Pharisees led in a woman who had been caught in the act of adultery. They stood her in plain sight of everyone and said, "Teacher, this woman was caught red-handed. Moses, in the law, gives orders to stone such persons. So what do you say?" They were trying to trap him into saying something incriminating so they could bring charges against him. Jesus bent down and wrote with his finger in the dirt. They kept at him, badgering him. He straightened up and said, "This one among you who has never done anything wrong, you go first. You throw the first stone." Bending down again, he wrote some more in the dirt. Hearing that, they walked away, one after another, beginning with the oldest. The woman was then left alone. Jesus stood up and spoke to her. "Woman, where are they? Does no one condemn you?" "No one, Master." Jesus smiled and said, "I don't either. Go on home and choose a good pathway." "By your words, I can see where I'm going. They throw a beam of light on my dark path. I've committed myself, and I'll never turn back from living by your righteous order." May these words of Scripture enlighten your soul.
Let us pray. May the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable to you, great and infinite Spirit. And may only truth be heard and truth be spoken today. Amen. I've always had a fascination for dandelions. In one of my earliest memories, I remember sitting in my friend's backyard, laughing with glee as we rubbed them under our chins. Remember? To make yellow streaks of summertime sunshine. And then standing with a fistful of buds that had gone to seed and blowing, like our picture up here, and sending the fairy wisps of promise dancing off into the gentle summer breeze. I remember my mom's friend giving us baskets to fill with the golden flowers and the leaves, and watching her as she carefully measured them into huge glass jars to ferment into dandelion wine. When it was ready, we girls would each be allowed a tiny glass to taste. And we would grimace at the bittersweet flavor of summer's most bountiful bloom, which somehow manages to nod and bob its way into every parent's hand by a chubby-fisted toddler. Dandelions. They are alternately loved and hated by many. Strong, resilient, fearless, as they grow effortlessly in the hardest of soil, or the rockiest of gardens, or the most cultivated of our lawns, or the darkest, driest corner by the gas meter in behind our well-tended homes. We yank them out, and we poison their roots, and we mow their brave yellow heads down, and we curse their appearance. We bemoan their resistance to be ousted from our lives and our meticulously capped turf. Yet these delicate, cheery, bright, and carefree beacons remain. They return each year to curtsy a blessing to the changing seasons and welcome us to rejoice in simply living. They speak mutely of promise as they are among the first to rear their tiny heads in spring, and I've even observed them blooming on a sudden February day during a thaw in a sheltered cove on a winter's cold day. So why do I speak of dandelions to you today? Well, I guess because they make me smile. They go through tough times and still they bloom. I want to be just like them. I think Jesus was like them in the way that he's been alternately loved and hated over the centuries. Dandelions are survivors, and quite simply, I think that we all are in our own way. Joseph Rothke, a poet, wrote, "Deep in its roots, a flower holds its light. In our scripture today, these hopeful words are affirmed by Jesus to the woman caught in adultery. He saw light in her and promise, even though it seemed that all was against her. After all, the penalty for a woman exercising her sexuality without the approval of a man who was believed to own her was stoning. And in some dark places it still is on earth. It's also worth noting that the man she was involved in wasn't dragged before the crowd. That double standard exists to some degree everywhere. Her accusers were prominent Pharisees, and they dragged the woman to Jesus in an effort to trip him up. They viewed the woman as expendable. Jesus was a bright beacon in their neighborhood who was gaining too much positive attention. He was invading their turf. They faced losing face. As Jesus became better known with his healing ministry and his talk of God's growing reign on earth, they treated Jesus like an invading weed. News about his message of good news was popping up all over. What could they do, they reasoned, but catch him up on distinct matters of the law. He was a rabbi. He knew the rules. Hadn't he spoken in their synagogue, read from the Holy Writ? His practice of disregarding commands and precepts must be stamped out. Israel was a holy race of God's chosen people, and this man was a blight. You can't just run around healing folk on the wrong days. Oh, and he had a habit of chatting with the wrong kind of people, and he didn't wash his hands at meals. He cajoled with notorious cheats, and he talked to women without a male relative present. And he fed crowds miracle bread and fish, filling their heads with news of another kingdom. And he called his God Dad. Jesus' ministry was catching on and invasive, and it needed to be stopped. He was challenging the way things were and needed to be. He was challenging their power and authority. If he was allowed to continue, the rulers of Rome might blame them. The heavily taxed Jewish citizens were already groaning under the brutal control of Roman occupation. This man was stirring up the people, and he could start a revolution. So, after they stamped on the woman's reputation by making her case public, they swung their sharp sickles of insult towards him. What do you say, Jesus? Surely you know the law. Jesus kneels and writes in the sand. Why? Maybe he was giving them time to cool off. Maybe the angry Pharisees needed to vent their frustration and displeasure. After all, no one who thinks they're right will listen until they've had their say. Maybe Jesus needed a moment too, like we all do sometimes, to collect our thoughts and calm our spirits and find the deep root of truth in a situation. I remember this happening to me a while ago. I found myself in a bad spot. I'd put my trust in someone, and I was betrayed through a misunderstanding. So, Pharisaical me went to a friend, and I ranted and I raved about the injustice of it all. After listening to me spread my poison of hurt feelings and poor me attitude all over the room, my friend spoke 2 words. There's grace. There's grace. My friend was right. As the dust settled, the light deepened my roots of my dry, hardened soul, sprouted a new shoot of forgiveness. Well, here's Jesus, and he's still swirling his hand in the dust, and the poisonous words are hanging like darkness over the listening hearts until Jesus rises and hands them a nodding dandelion blossom of truth. Let any one of you who is without sin cast the first stone. One by one, they leave. We all know why. We would have left too. Not one of us can say we haven't done wrong or caused hurt or chosen unwisely. We kind of just have to ask our moms about that. Perhaps Jesus wrote their names in the sand from the oldest to the youngest as a way to let them know that he knew enough about them and their transgressions, because the story has them leaving in order of their ages. We worry sometimes about our mistakes, and we carry shame for things and think we can't forgive ourselves. But Jesus offers understanding and forgiveness, like dandelion seeds of promise blown into weary hearts. Where are they? Has no one condemned you? Jesus spoke gently and offered grace. I don't either. Go and choose a better path. To this dejected, defeated woman, Jesus offers dandelion light. To the cutting accusations, he offers respect by speaking directly to her. Where are those who condemn you? To her spirit, poisoned by the anger and betrayal, he pours the golden wine of grace. Neither do I. To the cold shoulders of judgment, he offers the gentle promise of kindness as he gazes into her troubled eyes and plants seeds of hope. To her trampled thoughts, he offers the rich golden oil of understanding that our choices can lead us all astray, and he sends her away to choose a better future. This is the divine spirit that we embrace. A presence who really sees us and looks into our eyes as Jesus looked into the eyes of the woman that day and to the eyes of everyone who were standing there. This spirit of Jesus frees us from guilt and shame and encourages us to learn and grow and take a positive pathway for our future. In Jesus' eyes, the woman was not an adulterer. No. Nor did he attack those attacking him with labels of judgment. He simply called her woman. And he listened, and he offered understanding and support and forgiveness and grace. Maybe some of the Pharisees took a few seeds of promise home with them in their hearts that day, since Jesus' message of kindness and respect and love extended to them too. And he didn't out them by rebuking them publicly for their private mistakes. No. God's love never gets stamped out. And dandelions like to spread their joy all over, you know. I hope we are able to forgive as God in Jesus forgives. Forgive ourselves and let go of the shame and regret and allow ourselves the promise of wisdom gained and a better way forward. Let's feel good about joining Jesus in offering here at Trinity and Mount Zion a forgiving and forgiven community. A place where people can experience grace. A place where we can lay our burdens down. A place where we can celebrate that dandelion joy of a love that never, ever lets us go. It's a place where we can sing and mean it. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Now we've come to our time of prayer.
And I will sneak
probably over 20 years ago now. My husband Bob wrote a poem. I put it to music, and I've sung it many times. It has enriched my life and my heart. And I pray it enriches yours as we take this time of quietness and still our hearts and think of those who are hurting, those who are celebrating, those in our nation who need a touch from the Spirit, the dandelion joy of life, the life giver himself. Father in heaven, I need you. I'm calling you into my life. My greatest desire is to know you, are guiding my soul to your light. Loving God and Spirit of life, we offer our prayers to you for peace, for those whose lives are full of unrest, for love, and for the loved ones who are hurting and wounded, for understanding and acceptance of those who walk a different path from us, for the sick among us, and the voiceless among us, the sorrowful and the weak. Jesus, my Christ light, I love you. You've given me eternal life. My greatest reward is to know you, are guiding my soul to your light. Gracious God, we pray for our government leaders, that they would be given the wisdom and open hearts to the needs of all people within this glorious land of Canada that we call home, and all around this world. Help us to stay aware that we remain always in your abiding light and energy of your precious love, that you shine on us and all of creation. Spirit most holy, I trust you to teach me what's wrong from what's right. My greatest desire is to know you, are guiding my soul to your light. We thank you now, Holy One, for the example we have in Jesus, who taught us that love wins over evil. Light shines through the darkness, and life is a joy with each breath we take. Our greatest desire is to know you, are guiding our souls to your light. And all God's people said, Amen. Our final hymn, For the Beauty of the Earth, I would ask you to stand. so we go from here with the dandelion light of God's joy blooming in our hearts and sharing seeds everywhere we go. He never leaves us, always with us. And so we ask Jesus, the Christ light we learned from him, that is always in our hearts, to go with us. And that beautiful spirit that just goes through our lives like a thread of joy. And the Creator who started the first atom in our beautiful universe, that he just comes alongside us and carries us through our days. Amen.
So we're all invited back to Mount Zion for a wonderful barbecue. We have our very own Shelley, who sings on the worship team at Mount Zion, with her band, Bob's Your Funkle. I'm trained. And so make your way over there, safe travels, and we'll look forward to seeing you over at Mount Zion for a wonderful barbecue and concert. Thank you, Heather, for coming today and worshiping with us and leading us in such a spirited, wonderful message. Thank you so much to you. God bless you.
Go make a difference. We can make a difference. Go make a difference in the world. Go make a difference. We can make a difference. Go make a difference in the world. We are the salt of the earth, called to let the people see the love of God for you and me. We are the light of the world, not to be hidden but be seen. Go make a difference in the world. Go make a difference. You can make a difference.